neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except for as punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist in the United States or any other place subject to their jurisdiction. I was in grade school during history class when I was first made aware of the 13th Amendment from the Constitution of the United States of America. I was goofing off during class, so I didn't get a clear understanding of exactly what the 13th Amendment was saying. The understanding that I did gather is that slavery was abolished in 1865, and as long as you're on American soil, you could not be enslaved as a people. I did not hear the except clause that the way that you can still be a slave in the United States of America is if you get convicted of a crime and slavery can serve as punishment for that conviction. Not having a clear understanding of the 13th Amendment, growing up in a low-income neighborhood, and having a strong desire to live a lavish lifestyle of luxury that I seen lived out on the TV screen, or I heard rapped or sung about by the latest artist over the radio, I made the decision to get involved into criminal activity at an early age. At 13 years old, I began selling crack cocaine on my quest to make it to this lavish lifestyle of luxury. I mean, this was completely normal for a 13-year-old to get involved into criminal activity and sell crack cocaine in my neighborhood. It was just a part of our culture. And everything was going as planned until I found myself 6 years later as a 19-year-old young father to a 3-month-old son in the courtroom in front of the judge after reaching a plea agreement to serve out a 10-year prison sentence for attempted murder, possession of drugs, drug trafficking, and possession of firearms. Now, once I had arrived to the institution, it did not take me long for me to assess my situation, evaluate my environment, and come to the conclusion that this is not the Cayman Islands. This is not the lavish lifestyle of luxury I had envisioned when I embarked on my journey. This felt like hell on earth. As I began to have conversations with other individuals who were also in my same predicament and incarcerated as well, what I realized is that although they grew up in different neighborhoods, came from different cities, we never knew one another before we came in contact with each other inside of this facility, but we had a lot in common. That is because the information that circulated in their low-income neighborhoods was the same information that circulated in my low-income neighborhood. And it was that information that taught us how to live in a way to where we would sell drugs or commit robberies to make money. We used violence to resolve conflict. It was this lifestyle that led the majority of us to the 3 most common endings. Either you're handicapped or dead, both due to violence, or you are incarcerated. We checked the box of incarceration. We wasn't forced to be slaves like the Africans who was captured in 1619 and dispersed to different parts of the world, but we were influenced by a culture that generated information which helped to produce a mindset that led to our incarceration, ultimately volunteering us for legalized slavery once we had been duly convicted of a crime by a jury of our peers. I felt foolish. Not only was I convicted in the courtroom, I was also convicted in my spirit as a father that if I did not change my direction, then my son would grow up as an adult and his destination will be where mine currently resides, that of a volunteered, legalized slave. The Sentencing Project conducted a report titled Parents in Prison. It revealed that more than 5.2 million children in the United States of America has had an incarcerated parent at some point of time in their lives. The chances of that minor child who has an incarcerated parent to grow up and get incarcerated themselves as adults is more likely than that child who does not have an incarcerated parent. My brother and I, we can support that statement. Our mother was incarcerated when we were children. We both grew up as adults and have been incarcerated ourselves. When you think about one of the most notable slaves in American history, Harriet Tubman, in 1849, at 27 years old, Harriet came to the conclusion that slavery was conflicting against her spirit. She ran from Dorchester County, Maryland, all the way to Pennsylvania. Not only did she make it there, but she went back to Dorchester County, Maryland, up to 13 times to help free the others who were also enslaved. Now, anything that is done of such great magnitude, usually it's not done by one person alone. So is the case in Harriet's situation. Harriet had a group of people who came together in a collaborative effort to help free her and the others who were enslaved. This group of people did what they could with what they had where they were at. Maybe they were operating out of the ideology of a Martin Luther King, who once said that injustice to one is injustice to all. Or maybe they believed that they could never truly be free if their brethren was enslaved. So then that's why they got involved. This group of people that I'm talking about is known in history as the Underground Railroad. If incarceration is the new form of slavery, why not meet the new form of slavery with the new Underground Railroad? Now, I'm not suggesting that anybody who is hearing my message, that you go break somebody out of prison and house them in your basement. We are attempting to free a different kind of slave. The kind of slave that unconsciously volunteers themselves for legalized slavery because of the information that circulates in their low-income neighborhoods that helps them to develop a philosophy that gets them incarcerated. What would happen if we were to intentionally transfer different information into these low-income neighborhoods? Information that would help that 13-year-old to develop a philosophy that would cause them to become a law-abiding citizen versus an outlaw. I read an interesting article in Insider featuring two billionaires by the name of Sean Jay-Z Carter and Jack Dorsey. They came together and created a program called the Bitcoin Academy, designed to teach financial literacy and investment strategies for those people who are in disenfranchised communities living in poverty. After the conclusion of the first program, one of the facilitators by the name of Lamar Wilson had an interesting view about what he saw when he taught the class. He said the residents who participated in this 12-week program, he was impressed how quickly they were able to gain an understanding of highly technical information. What would have happened if they would have had equal access to this information a long time ago? Would their situations be the same? Would they still be in poverty? I think not. Different mindset. He also said it's not that people are deliberately keeping information from these low-income neighborhoods, but it's just that people are not intentional about transferring information into these low-income neighborhoods. So then that information remains to be absent. When I was serving my 10-year prison sentence in Marion Correctional Institution, I came to the conclusion that incarceration was conflicting against my spirit. I understood that I was experiencing extreme failure, but I was determined not to allow that failure to be final, but rather that failure to serve as tuition to my success. That determination, combined with me accessing outside resources, is what helped me to be able to accomplish my freedom. Those outside resources came in the form of what I want to call the new Underground Railroad. It was that community volunteer sponsored by an outside agency to come inside of the prison to teach computer literacy. It was that chaplain who came inside of the prison with recordings of sermons by T.D. Jakes to help strengthen my spiritual awareness. It was that professor who came inside of the prison and taught small business management and entrepreneurship. It was this information that helped me to gain the confidence to abandon the philosophy that had got me incarcerated and to develop a philosophy that, although at the time I was still in prison, but I was in prison without the bars. I became free before I was officially released in 2007, and that's what paved the way for me to be able to say that I have been home from prison for 15 years. I am defying the odds. My son, who was 10 years old when I got released, I was able to gain custody of him, and I was intentional about transferring information into his mind so he can develop a philosophy that would not get him incarcerated. And I am happy to say that he is 25 years old with no felonies, married with children. As I am compelled to do this work and expand this new Underground Railroad, going inside of the prisons, working with individuals before they get released, to assist them with their transition, I am always being approached by loved ones of those who are incarcerated. And their first ask of me is always, Carlos, can you get my loved one out of prison? My first reply is always, I do not fight to get people out of prison, but I fight to get people the information so then they can develop a philosophy that will never have them to be incarcerated ever again. From 1800 to 1865, people would put a lantern on their houses as an indicator that they were a part of the Underground Railroad. Are you willing to do something similar in today's time to address this modern day slavery of incarceration and maybe change your profile picture on your social media account as an indicator that you are a resource for the new Underground Railroad? The main objective of the new Underground Railroad is simply the transference of information into the minds that is getting people unconsciously enslaved by their incarceration. What is that information? It is the information that you have. How do you make decisions in a way that does not get you incarcerated? It is the information that you have. How do you make money in a way that does not get you incarcerated? It is the information that you have. How do you apply conflict resolution in a way that does not get you incarcerated? This new Underground Railroad is made up of all different types of people. It is that sheriff, that warden, that politician, the businessman, the pastor of a church, a stay-at-home mom, the restored citizen, the director of a governmental agency, just to name a few, but all working together in a collaborative effort to address this modern-day slavery of incarceration by supporting the transference of information into the minds that is unconsciously getting people enslaved by their incarceration so we can enjoy a safer society, and we will go down in history as the new Underground Railroad who turned the penitentiary on its head and we stood the community on its feet. Thank you.